A huge welcome to all you tennis lovers, sports fans, and everyone tuning in from across the globe. We're coming to you today with some breaking news that's absolutely rocked the world of sports. It's a story that's just massive, completely out of left field. And such a game changer, it's completely flipped the script on the 2026 WTA season. What we're talking about is the BNP Paribas Open, what many people call the fifth Grand Slam, taking place in the brutal desert of Indian Wells, California. This is a tournament that makes legends where the blistering sun, the unpredictable winds, and the punishing conditions push players past their limits, testing not just their talent, but their stamina, their concentration, and their sheer force of will. And just today, that desert was the scene of a massive upset that no expert, no commentator, and no computer model ever saw coming. The headlines are screaming it everywhere, from sports pages to social media and every TV network out there. The entire nation of Russia is in disbelief. Alexandra Ella has taken down Andrea at the BNP Paribas Open. To really get how huge this win is, you have to understand the giants who are battling it out on the court. First up, you've got Andrea, a player whose name speaks for itself. Sitting at world number 8, Andrea has been a fixture in that elite top 5 group for a long time, and she just carries herself like a true champion. This is not your average opponent. She didn't just show up to Indian Wells as a top seed, she was here to defend her title. Think back to the 2025 season. Andrea, who was just a teenager at the time, absolutely tore through the competition with the kind of sharp, relentless play you'd expect from a seasoned pro. She grabbed that title in an incredible performance, capping it all off with a stunning finals victory where she completely picked apart the powerhouse Aryna Sabalenka. That win solidified her reputation as one of the most dangerous young talents in the game. This year, when Andrea came back to California, she was carrying a lot more than just her racket bag. She was under the immense pressure of defending 1,000 ranking points, the high hopes of her fans and her country, and the honor of holding a title she had worked so hard to win. The entire Russian tennis world, famous for churning out disciplined top-tier champions, had put all their faith in Andrea as their golden girl, the one they saw as the next dominant force ready to rule women's tennis for the next 10 years. But all that expectation ran headfirst into an up-and-coming player that almost nobody saw as a threat. Andrea is the kind of player who lives for control, who just soaks up the power of her opponent's shots and fires them back with pinpoint accuracy, and she has a knack for mentally dismantling her competition way before their bodies give out. She was without a doubt the heavy favorite. Everyone expected her to win. She was the undisputed queen of the desert. And then on the other side of the court, standing in a whole different kind of spotlight, was Alexandra Ella, the rising star from the Philippines. The 20-year-old phenom has the hopes of a whole country on her shoulders, not to mention a whole region and a new generation of young athletes. Ella's path to get here feels like something straight out of a movie. She's a graduate of the world-famous Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, where she learned all about true grit, relentless topspin, and mental toughness from one of the greatest fighters the sport has ever seen. Coming into Indian Wells, Ella had already climbed to a career-high ranking of world number 31, a spot she absolutely earned. It wasn't just handed to her. That ranking was forged in the fire of the Middle East swing, where she put together an incredible run to the quarterfinals in Dubai, taking out some big-name opponents along the way, including a huge win against world number 7 Jasmine Paolini. That incredible run earned her a seeded spot in this year's BNP Paribas Open, which was a historic first for any player from the Philippines in a WTA 1000 tournament. But even with her recent momentum, the tennis world viewed the upcoming match against Andrea as an insurmountable challenge. Andrea, after all, was the defending champion and a Russian phenom, who had already handily defeated Ella during an exhibition match in Macau late last year. The outcome felt inevitable. The expectation was that Andrea would absorb the initial attack, use her tactical genius to neutralize Ella's wicked left-handed forehand, and then cruise to the next round in her quest for a second straight title. However, as sports often remind us, the game isn't played on paper. It pays no attention to expectations rankings or the points a player is defending. The only things that matter are execution grace under fire and an absolute refusal to quit. And on this day, Alexandra Ella delivered a stunning masterclass. Her display of tennis has absolutely stunned the global sports community. It was a monumental, landscape-altering win that knocked out the reigning champion and sent Andrea home much earlier than anyone could have possibly foreseen. The shock from this result is still sending tremors throughout the tennis world. In Russia, the sports media is reeling, analyzing every single rally and shot, poring over every strategic decision, and trying to make sense of how their champion was so thoroughly taken apart. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, it's a completely different scene with celebrations erupting in the streets. Social media is on fire with adoration for their homegrown champion. A young woman who is rewriting the future of Southeast Asian tennis and demolishing barriers one swing at a time. This was so much more than just a contest of hitting a yellow ball over a net. It was a strategic chess match unfolding at 100 miles per hour, a battle between two completely opposite styles, a mental marathon, and a showcase for just how far women's tennis has evolved. On one side of the court stood the Russian prodigy hitting flat penetrating shots with pinpoint accuracy. And on the other side, you had the Filipina trailblazer who came armed with a heavy, looping Nadal-style topspin that consistently kept her rival off balance and guessing. The match became a fight for control over court positioning, clutch serving, and sheer mental dominance. How exactly did Ella manage to crack Andrea's famously solid defense? What were the strategic changes honed at the Rafa Nadal Academy that enabled the 20-year-old to take command and completely alter the course of the match? How will this shocking early-round defeat affect the rest of Andrea's 2026 season? And the biggest question of all, now that Alexandra Ella has proven she can defeat the very best in the world on the biggest stages outside the Grand Slams, just how high can she climb? The consequences of this one match extend far beyond a single event. This outcome has fundamentally altered the power structure of the WTA. It announces the official arrival of a new guard, a youth movement that is no longer content to wait for its turn. Emerging talents like Ella are not just here to compete anymore. They are here to tear down the established order. The Indian Wells upset is a match that will be dissected for years, broken down by coaches and rewatched by aspiring young athletes, ultimately celebrated as a landmark moment in the history of international sports. And now, let's get into it. I'll provide you with a headline and some important news clips. Your task is to craft a detailed and highly professional main script for a YouTube news segment. Let's dive deep into how this historic upset actually happened on the famously challenging courts of the Indian Wells Tennis Garden. To fully grasp the sheer scale of Alexandra Ella's victory over Andrea, to really understand this match, we have to break down the game plans each player brought, the mental battle waged across the net, and the unique court conditions that Ella so brilliantly used to her advantage. First off, you have to consider the one-of-a-kind setting of the BNP Paribas Open. Indian Wells is famously a tough place to play. The ball just rockets through the thin, dry desert air at an incredible pace. But at the same time, the court itself is a gritty, high-grip hardcourt that grabs the ball and makes it take an unusually high bounce. That strange combination demands a very particular style of footwork and racket setup. Traditionally, players who generate a ton of topspin do really well here because the surface just exaggerates the kick on the bounce. On the other hand, players who hit a really flat ball can have a hard time keeping it in the court in that thin air, and they often sail their shots long if their feet are just a split second too slow. Mirra Andrea is a player whose entire game is built on perfect timing and redirecting her opponent's pace. She thrives on soaking up the power that comes at her, hitting flat, penetrating ground strokes and carving out sharp angles that wear her opponents down. When she claimed the title here back in 2025 over Aryna Sabalenka, she turned Sabalenka's own massive power against her in a textbook display of counterpunching. But Alexandra Ella is a whole different beast. For starters, Ella's a lefty. Her style of play comes straight out of the Rafa Nadal Academy's philosophy. She hits the ball with a ton of RPM and heavy topspin, especially from her forehand side. From the very first ball, you could see that Alexandra Ella showed up in Indian Wells with a perfectly designed strategy. Instead of giving Mirra Andrea the flat, fast balls that the Russian loves to hit, the kind she can steer with pinpoint accuracy, Ella gave her something completely new to deal with. She fed her a steady diet of high-looping heavy topspin shots that consistently bounced up above Andreeva's comfort zone. This strategy wasn't just smart, it was executed with incredible discipline. By hammering Andreeva's backhand with non-stop high spinning balls, Ella kept the Russian from being able to step into the court and control the points, making her hit from awkward spots deep behind the baseline. Every single shot was a deliberate attempt to throw her off, completely taking away Andreeva's ability to hit her flat shots down the line and dictate the flow of the match. And Ella being left-handed just made things even trickier. Her spin-heavy forehand was constantly pulling the court open, finding angles that had Andreeva scrambling, and her serve placement just kept cranking up the pressure. While neither player is known for pure power, Ella's wide slice serve from the ad court consistently pulled Andrea way out into the doubles alley, which left the entire court open for a crushing forehand winner on the next shot. The stats really backed up her tactical brilliance. Ella landed an incredibly high percentage of her first serves, which let her cruise through her service games, and her conversion rate on breakpoints was absolutely lethal as she pounced on every chance the second a small crack appeared in Andrea's game. But all the strategy in the world wouldn't have been enough to pull off this upset. The mental game was just as crucial. Andrea came into this match carrying a huge amount of pressure. She was the defending champion with 1,000 ranking points on the line, knowing full well that every single mistake would be magnified under the bright lights of Indian Wells. Ella, on the other hand, played with a cool, fearless confidence. She put that rough and Nadal Academy discipline to work, pouncing on every tiny flicker of doubt from the world number 8. Let's be clear, this was anything but luck. What we saw was a masterclass in tactical genius, mental fortitude, and flawless execution. Ella wasn't just winning points out there. She completely seized control of the story, transforming the desert courts of Indian Wells into the backdrop for a legendary win that people will be talking about for years. For Mirra Andrea, every single service break felt like a disaster on the brink. Each game she dropped seemed to echo louder than the last, cranked up by the immense pressure of defending not just a WT, a 1,000 crown, but 1,000 ranking points with it. But for Alexandra Ella, the situation couldn't have been more different. Riding a career-high ranking of 31 and already making a name for herself, she stepped onto the court, playing loose like someone with absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that freedom fueled her game, leading to bold, brilliant shots when the match was on the line. We saw it on those 30-all deuce points where one rally could change everything. This was a test of pure nerve. Even when Andrea tried to mix things up, luring her in with low slices and off-speed shots, Ella never got rattled. She calmly built her points, biding her time, and looked for the perfect opening to attack. And the second a short ball came her way, she pounced not with brute force, but with surgical accuracy. That kind of composure and tactical smarts showed just how far she's come. Alexandra Ella is no longer just a promising young talent. She's officially a serious threat on the WTA Tour. She didn't just overpower the world's number 8 player, she completely outmaneuvered her. Back in Russia, the reaction is pure shock and disbelief, and sports analysts in Moscow are scrambling for answers. Was it the pressure getting to her? Was there a hidden injury? But blaming it on anything else would be a huge injustice to the absolute brilliance of Ella's performance. It's almost unheard of for Russian tennis to see one of its brightest stars taken apart so completely at a tournament she owned just the year before. This defeat is a major wake-up call for Andrea's team. The ground is shifting on the WTA Tour, and players like Ella are proving that smart preparation, solid strategy, and fearless play can bring down anyone, even the very best. At the same time, you simply can't overstate what this means for the Philippines and for Asian tennis in general. In a sport that's historically been ruled by players from Europe and North America, what Alexandra Ella just did is monumental. For a Filipina to stand on one of the world's biggest stages and take down a defending champion, that's a landmark moment. It's the payoff for years of intense training, battling it out on the global circuit, and having the rock-solid support of her country. This wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. A new chapter is beginning, and Ella is leading the charge. This win echoes across Southeast Asia, sending a powerful message to every young athlete. It tells them that the top of the pro tennis world is not out of reach. Alexandra Ella has gone from being an inspiration to being a true force. She's now officially a giant slayer, a genuine contender who has just proven her game holds up against the toughest competition on the biggest stage. Looking ahead at the BNP Paribas Open, the entire draw just got turned on its head. With the defending champ now out of the picture, the whole dynamic in Ella's part of the bracket has changed completely. All the momentum is on her side now. We're past the point of asking if she belongs here. The real question is just how deep she can go in this tournament. Coming down from the high of a massive upset is one of the toughest things for a young player who can easily have a letdown in their next match. But if her poise against Mirra Andrea showed us anything, it's that Ella has the mental fortitude to lock back in, clear her head, and attack her next opponent with that same sharp tactical game plan. People are going to be breaking down this match for years. It was a masterclass in how a lefty's heavy topspin can completely dismantle a flat-hitting counterpuncher. This was a win built on patience and pure mental grit, and the guts to execute flawlessly when everything was on the line. This was without a doubt a historic shocker that left the Russian tennis world speechless and has fans everywhere buzzing. Now that the dust is settling here at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, we're starting to grasp the sheer scale of what we just saw. Alexandra Ella's calculated, gutsy, and perfectly played victory over Andrea isn't just a top moment from the 2026 WTA season. This is a career-defining performance. The 20-year-old star from the Philippines has just put the entire tour on notice. She's not just here to compete with the top tier of women's tennis. She's a powerhouse who can take down the biggest names in the game. For Andrea Ella, this early loss is a harsh lesson in just how brutal and unforgiving pro tennis can be. Trying to defend a WTA 1000 title brings a whole different level of pressure. And tonight, the non-stop accuracy, the strategic genius, and the ice-cold calm of Alexandra Ella were just an insurmountable wall. You can bet the Russian phenom will go back to the drawing board, analyze this loss, and come back even tougher. But this match sent a clear signal to everyone. That gap between the top 10 and everyone else, it's shrinking, and it's shrinking fast. For Alexandra Ella, there are no limits to what she can achieve now. By sticking to a perfect game plan and showing she has nerves of solid steel, she's officially gone from being a rising star to a legitimate giant killer. She's fired up her entire home country, ignited a new wave of athletes all over Asia, and put every single player in the locker room on alert. That heavy topspin that lefty serve and that sheer force of will are a dangerous combination. The BNP Paribas Open has just given us a story we'll be talking about forever. As this tournament moves forward, all eyes are going to be on Ella.